Everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Glad to have y'all with us today. I just want to read the press release here that we've got for you. This started back in 1985. On October 1st, 1985, human remains were discovered by a Texas Department of Transportation crew while mowing along Interstate 20 east of Highway 69 in the eastbound lane. The remains were located approximately 75 feet from the roadway. The mowing crew contacted the Lindale Police Department, who then contacted the Sheriff's Office, where Detective Turner got involved. The remains appeared to be of a female from the clothing that was found near the body. A lady's t-shirt was found with an insignia on the front, which read Top Rail Country Music, Dallas, Texas. The remains were sent to the Southwestern Institute of Forensic Sciences at Parkland Hospital in Dallas for an autopsy. It was believed to be the body of a white or Hispanic female, approximately 25 years of age. The body was determined to have been there for about a year or more due to the condition of the bones. Multiple leads received through the past 38 years have all failed to identify the young female. And I'll go ahead and tell you, I don't have it written down here, but it's because of the tenacity of this man right here is the reason she has been identified. In 2021, the Sheriff's Office partnered with Doe Project for assistance in identifying the remains. The Doe Project is a nonprofit organization that assists law enforcement agencies in identification of unknown remains through DNA ancestry searches. A grant was obtained in late 2021 with Astria Labs in California to extract DNA from the remains for ancestry comparison. Through DNA received, the DDP submitted the results through several ancestry databanks. In November 2023, the DDP notified Detective Turner of the results of the ancestry search and a possible lead identifying the remains as a white female from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Information also found the victim was married in January of 1984, and she had a child born in July of 1984. Detective Turner here spoke with possible family members and traveled to Fort Worth and obtained DNA swabs from the possible mother of the victim. Detective Turner also verified the victim had told other family members she did have a daughter believed to have been born in July of 1984. Detective Turner located the daughter living in Alabama, and with the assistance of the Fort Payne Police Department, DNA was obtained from the daughter. All samples were submitted to the University of North Texas at Fort Worth's Anthropology Department for comparison to the victim. Our office was notified earlier this month from UNT Fort Worth the victim's DNA was a positive match to the mother in Fort Worth as well as the daughter in Alabama. The remains were identified as Sindy Gena Crow, a white female with a date of birth of September 12, 1957. The last address in 1984 was in Arlington, Texas. She married Dwight P. Crow in January of 84. The daughter of the victim was identified as Margot Marie Crow Gomez. Family members have been notified of the DNA match and the identity of the remains as being their family member. And we'll take any questions at this time.
Sheriff, what led to, or if David wants to answer, what led to wanting to be with the Doe Project? What started that?
Well, anytime we have anybody that's lost a life, we will not rest until we identify the body, and if at all possible, try to determine what caused the death, and which will be the next part. If it's being so old, so long ago, it's going to be very difficult. Also, when you don't have any organs or anything left in the body, you have nothing but skeletal remains, it's very difficult unless you have a shattered skull or something very prominent to show the cause of death. So the family is glad to find some closure in it, I'm sure. And again, I can tell you, he has been after me forever for the last several years. Ever since I've been here going on 12 years. Sheriff, I need some more money. I need another grant. I need this or that to further pursue to try to get the remains identified. And the next step for us to do, we feel that it's our obligation to make sure she gets a proper burial.
Yeah, was Miss Crow listed as a missing person at this point?
It's very hard to tell since we just found out, and you have to go back 25 years, and everything gets purged or gets put in boxes and put in a warehouse. You know, that many years ago, they didn't even have really good databases as far as law enforcement reporting and things of that nature. So that part would be very difficult. It appears, I hope I'm not making too big a stretch, that the family was not that close like some families are, and there's a lot of traveling and wandering during that time that I believe she was, what, 26, 27, 28 at times she went missing. And she, I don't even know if David's had an opportunity yet to try to locate the husband or ex-husband or whatever.
He's deceased.
He's deceased, so a lot of answers have gone to the grave with her and him and other people. The daughter obviously would have been too young to have known anything, so the mother, she was already out of the house, so had we had missing reports, it would have made it much easier for us to try to get her identified. But that's why it's always important when you have a missing person to don't let NCIC, TCIC remove that from the database, where when we find remains, we can go back and check the closest ones to us, and then go, venture farther out to try to identify the remains.
Sheriff, with y'all teaming up with DNA Doe and solving this case that had been unsolved for so many years, is there the potential to do something like this again in the future? Are there other missing person cases that have been around for a while that y'all want to look into or anything?
There's none here.
We don't have any unidentified
Right.
remains.
Right.
But if we have a couple, along with Tyler PD, and actually Tyler PD has one too that I kind of do searches on all the time through NAMUS, which is the National Data Bank for Missing Persons. And I'll do searches through them to see if it will possibly have a lead.
I'll go one step farther. When I came into office on January 1st, 2013, we had 24 unsolved homicides. We solved 2 of those. We solved one that occurred in Fort Worth through here. And since that date, since January 1st, 2013, we've had 0 unsolved homicides in Smith County,
And from you,
which is almost unheard of.
And you mentioned the family was glad. How do you feel, kind of spearheading, not the office spearheading this?
Well, we feel proud that we finally stuck with it long enough to get an answer, but I had no doubt. David did all this mostly on unpaid time. He was a reserve deputy. I hired him back when I went into office in January 1st, 2013, but David had worked here when I worked at Gregg County Sheriff's Office from 76 to 87, and he worked over here. We'd worked together some. Then I went to DEA in Denver, and then full circle back to Tyler with ATF, and then we kind of got back together. But we need some more people like him.
Yeah, David, having been involved in this case for almost 39 years, what is it like to finally identify Ms. Crow?
Well, with any case that we solve, whether it's a recent case or an old case, we're always proud of ourselves and glad that we did it. This case here it was always kind of a challenge because, not to correct the sheriff, but she was never reported missing. Her family lived out of state. She wound up back here in Texas, and she just was around everywhere. So actually her family never knew that she was even married. or had a child. So through, and if with the investigative part that the DNA Doe Project did, that Rhonda and them did, I followed up on all their leads and learned more than what we walked off with.
Yeah. And we want to let Rhonda have an opportunity to speak here today. Rhonda Kevorkian's no relation to Dr. Kevorkian. So Rhonda, if you would, please come up here.
I want to show something.
Okay. He wants to show you something first.
Yeah. Now,
We didn't rehearse this.
we didn't rehearse this. We've been around a long time. This is that's me. I had black hair then. That's Tommy Goodman. He works here now.
Did they have Photoshop back in those days?
They sure did. And this is Kelly Stroud. He was another one of our detectives. This is the next day after we found the remains, and we went back up there with metal detectors and a shovel, and we had a sift. Back then, you had a sifting screen. You know, you put dirt up there and sift it. We found additional bones, found several items. So I ran across this in the newspaper while I was looking up ads. I got two more I want to show you, but I'm going to let Rhonda speak first, and then I'll tell how we did this, and I'll show you those.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Rhonda Kevorkian, Executive Director of Human Resources and Education for the DNA Doe Project and team lead for this case. I'm honored to be here alongside the Smith County Sheriff's Department to share this important update with you. For those who may not be familiar with our organization, the DNA Doe Project is a national nonprofit that works exclusively on cases of unidentified remains. Our expert investigative genetic genealogists volunteer their time and expertise to help bring resolution to these difficult cases. The investigative lead that was provided to the Smith County Sheriff's Department aided in the identification through a process called investigative genetic genealogy. Through this process, our team was able to build the family trees of matching DNA relatives. Common ancestors were found amongst them, suggesting that these ancestors were also in the tree of our unidentified person. We then built forward in time to look for anyone that was unaccounted for. This painstaking work, carried out by a team of our 15 of our volunteers who traveled to Texas to work in a retreat-style event, has led us to this investigative lead. A close relative was on this match list, saving the team hours of work and pointing us to the correct candidate in a matter of hours. I want to thank the Smith County Sheriff's Department and investigator David Turner for allowing us to partner with them on this case. Thank you, David and Betty Edwards, for never giving up on her. I'd also like to acknowledge the crucial contributions of our co-team lead, Robin Espenson, the entire DNA Doe Project team, and all those who worked behind the scenes to support us, including Estrella Forensics, who did the extraction and whole genome sequencing, and Kevin Lord of Sabre Investigations for performing the bioinformatics. Additionally, we are deeply grateful to Ruth Foreman for her hospitality and for providing a warm and welcoming space for our team to work. Our team wishes to express our deepest condolences to Cindy's family and loved ones. We know this is a bittersweet resolution, and our hearts go out to all who grieve her loss. Thank you.
I just have one quick question. So
Yes.
during the project, you guys had DNA of Cindy, and that's how you guys kind of went through the tree?
Well, the DNA goes to the lab, gets processed, and then it goes to Kevin Lord, who does the bioinformatics. That's where he creates a usable kit for upload. Then it's uploaded to GEDmatch. And that's the database that we used in this case.
But the DNA was from Cindy.
It was from,
Well, yes. What we do is the DNA we had from Cindy was actually, it was in CODIS. I sent some of the remains to Australia Labs. They extracted the DNA that was necessary for the ancestry part. takes a whole lot more for the ancestry DNA than it does for a criminal DNA type thing. So through that, and thank goodness that the first cousin did a genealogy search on herself. So when we uploaded the DNA from Australia Labs, then it spit out through the ancestry data bank the first cousin. After my search and investigating with them, and I got swabs from the mother and from the daughter, then that's ran through CODIS, and then CODIS says, yes, it's a match. So that's basically how we come up with identifying her. And so, while we're on that, the DNA Doe people have like a forensic artist, I guess.
Yes.
So he had taken some, actually the original photos that I gave him from that Swifts did during the original autopsy. And this is what they he came up with. This is what he believes she looked like. Well, I won't stand up, I'm sorry. And that's what, and we also learned that she was part Hispanic and part Italian, is what we've also learned. But that's what he drew. And this is her high school picture. So you can see pretty well, he's pretty sharp on the reconstruction. So, but she was, as he said, 26, 27 years old when she disappeared.
Any other questions?
You brought up sifting through evidence on the scene and things like that. Can you sort of speak to the evolution of the technology and what the future for identifying victims looks like?
They still use sifters.
They still see. I was going to say they still use sifters. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, they still use sifters. I don't know if I've not been onto a crime scene for years now with our crime, because before we had to do it. Mm-hmm. We worked our own cases. Now we have our own CSI unit. They go out there, they do the scene, and we don't go in there. You know, we let them do everything. So, but yeah, we actually found through the sifting and with Tommy using the metal detector, we found her watch and an earring. So that, and this was in an area it was in a kind of a gully, and she'd been there for a year, and it rained, and so most of all this stuff was under 4, 5, 6 inches of mud. So even the bones. So that's why we went back out there the next day and searched more and opened our grid up to get a bigger area and to find. We wanted to find all of her bones. That's the main thing we wanted to do.
Were you able to do that?
Yes, 99% of them we did.
Which is almost unheard of in a situation like that where they've been there a year because of animals, especially around East Texas, wild hogs and then stray dogs and everything. I've seen them where they're scattered all over the forest. So
yeah. So at the time, y'all were unable to identify her due to limitations in technology.
There was no ID on her, no missing report on her. We couldn't. I've done searches through NamUs over the last 38 years trying to identify her, and I've always gotten hits as far as people that matched ours, and one's actually from out of Louisville. It's missing. I tracked the parents down, got DNA, and submitted it. It's not them. Another one from Florida, and got hold of her dad, the victim's daddy. He is 90 years old, still alive. Got DNA from him. We compared him, and he actually said that his dog. They were from around Orlando. And he said that she hitchhiked all the time, and they always felt like Ted Bundy got her, picked her up hitchhiking. So, but trust me, I cannot thank the DNA Doe Project enough, because we would have never identified her unless we had done this ancestry thing. And Betty Edwards actually has a Facebook page for Tyler Jane Doe that we've followed for years on there. and talked back and forth for everything, trying to, you know, following up leads. She'd call me and say, check this girl. I'd check, you know. But if they, and I'd call the department, and if they had the DNA in there, in NamUs, well, it's been checked, you know.
And I know you said, you know, it's obviously very difficult here, you know, for the next stage of things, but now that she's been identified, kind of where do you guys go now from, you know, here with the case?
It's very difficult now. That's just a whole nother stage we're going to have to evaluate because the only living relatives I think that we have is the mom was still living, right, Dave?
Mom, yeah.
But the daughter obviously was too young back then. She was an infant, or not very old.
She's about a month or two old.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to go any further. And all we have to show, quite frankly, that it was a homicide, if we were to arrest somebody, is because her clothes were piled next to her and she was unclothed. I wasn't there. I was working somewhere else then, so I can't speak to the scene where they were like just laying there all together, or obviously it would look completely differently had animals torn them off or whatever, and I'm assuming from what I've heard that was not the case.
How did the partnership with DNA Doe Project in 21, how did it go from where it was to, you know, entering into a partnership?
Well, I'll say we partnered with them. Gregg County had 2 unidentified females over there. And Lieutenant Eddie Hope, who was one of the officers in, he had contacted the DNA Doe Project, and Kevin Lord. And I've had multiple conversations with Kevin also. And talking to Eddie and him telling me, yeah, you need to do this. So I said, all right. So, like I said, went to the sheriff and said, you know, hey, let's do this. So he said, we need to do it. So we did. So that's how we wound up getting Kevin and starting the process and getting with Australia Labs. They actually gave us a grant. They didn't charge us nothing to do this, which is $4,000 or $5,000 to do this extraction, you know, and they have to have such a high quantity that they it took them about 1.5 years or more to do all the DNA that they need to get.
You said a high quantity of a sample?
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, Rhonda May could tell you more about that than I can. You know, so, but but after we got the results back and they got them submitted through the JED match, it was pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And the blessing of it was that the results came back fast, and if that first cousin, and when I tried to get a hold of the first cousin, I actually wound up with her uncle, and I asked him, you know, do you have a family member that disappeared? He said, yeah, my sister's child disappeared in '84. Bingo. Well, I say disappeared in '84. That's the last contact they had with her, was 1984. And both Swifts and UNT anthropology folks up in Denton both said that they judged she had been out there for about 1 year or so. So we found her October 1st, 1985. That's probably right on the button of somewhere around the August time frame.
Yeah, and Sheriff Smith spoke about your tenacity. Where does that drive come from?
Being old police. You know, he made a statement one time, which is true, and we've been there together. We start something, we don't finish till it's done. You know, come 5 o'clock, we don't stop. We keep on going. It might be midnight or 2 or 3 o'clock.
We were doing the first 48 before that show was ever a dream with anybody.
Yeah.
We'd go home, we would work until we identified the last person the decedent was seen with, plus the who the person was. We've been doing that for years. It was nothing to work 48 or more hours, round no sleep, nothing. And that's what I attribute to our 100% clearance rate. You have a window of opportunity when you're working a homicide case. And the way I try to show it is the window's moving. If you don't jump through the window early, it's gone. And it takes 10 times as much time and leg work and everything to get what you would have gotten immediately had you not worried about too much overtime, too much comp time. You can't think about things like that.
And the longer you go, the witnesses disappear.
Prime example in this case here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they just, and it, actually, a lot of the stuff that I found out, a lot of the information that I found out too, was from a cousin. I think it would be her cousin of the child in Alabama that was 11 years old when they showed up in Alabama with the daughter. So she provided me with a lot of information, but everybody else is deceased. So just have to, go with what we got.
But nonetheless, you put her name, you gave her her name back. And how does that feel?
Yes. I mean, I've always said before I pass through the gates, I want to identify her. So, feels good, Thank goodness for the DNA Doe Project. I keep on saying, I can't thank them enough, So.